It finally happened. The New York Giants quarterback, Daniel Jones, has officially been benched. Let's talk about it. Welcome back to the Everything New York Giants podcast with New York Giants fangirl. I'm your host, Adrianna. In today's episode, we have some stuff to talk about. First of all, being the Daniel Jones being benched for Tommy Cutlets DeVito. Brian Daboll spoke to the media. Joe Schoen had his bye-week press conference. And then, the Giants take on the Bucs on Sunday with Tommy Cutlets as their leader. So let's get into it. Let's start with the Daniel Jones news. So when Joe Schoen spoke to the press last week, he was asked, of course, about, what they're doing and what they're going to do during this bye week. And he said a lot that they are evaluating everything from top to bottom, everything that they wanted to do to try and fix this franchise, which at this point, it's too little too late to fix this season. But, maybe they could get ahead of it for next year. And the first thing that will allow them to do that is benching Daniel Jones, because he has an injury guarantee. And if he were to play and get injured, he would have to pass a physical by March 5th, or else he is guaranteed $23 or $25 million. So I think they're doing the right thing with benching him. They lost to the Panthers, which was the worst football team in the league. And now it looks like the Giants are the worst football team in the league because they lost to the Panthers in overtime. And I was there. I was in Germany. I was smart and I extended my stay for the week. So I wasn't just there for the football game. I was lucky that I got to make a vacation out of it. So my mom and I went to some places in Germany and Austria, and I got to end my trip on a high note as opposed to leaving after the Giants losing to the Panthers. So that was great. Had a great vacation, which is why you haven't seen any podcasts. So we are back to it. So anyway, I think we all agree that this is the right move. When Joe, was asked about his process and things like that, we'll get into that in a minute. But he was asked about, benching Daniel Jones. Is the injury guarantee going to come into that? Is that going to be something that helps them make that decision? And he said any decision they make will be football decisions, which, guys, this is what he's supposed to do, right? Him and Daboll give us nothing. They get trained by the PR staff. They say the bare minimum and things that won't get them in trouble. So obviously Joe Schoen wasn't going to come out and admit that the injury guarantee was going to be part of the reason why they bench him. We all know, we can read between the lines, right? That's absolutely a part of it. It's so much of a part of it that not only is he not the starting quarterback, he is now the third string quarterback and is going to be inactive on game days. That's right. Drew Lock is the backup. So it's 100% has to do with the injury guarantee. They cannot risk putting him in. If DeVito has to come out for whatever reason, they can't risk putting DJ in and him getting injured, which I think we all agree is the smart decision at this point, because you don't want to be tied down to have Daniel Jones on the team next year. Want to have a clean break with him after this season. That's why they structured this deal the way that they did, 4 years with an out after the second year. And now they're going to be able to do that, which is great news for all of us. We can finally move on from Daniel Jones. So next up, Tommy Cutlets is going to be the starter on Sunday against the Tampa Bay Bucs at home. So Daboll spoke to the media today. And, he led the whole thing off with, this was the decision. We went back and we looked at film from last year and this year, and we made our decision based on, who we think gives us the best chance to win. And, we think that Tommy is part of that. And he also mentioned a couple times that last year, DeVito brought this spark to the whole team, not just the offense. He said he brought a spark and an energy to the team that, we felt like this was the time to do it. And it was the right move to go to him because of that, which, listen, I don't think anyone is going to argue that they'd probably rather watch DeVito over Locke. I feel like Locke is the worst of the three, although I could be proven wrong on Sunday. We will see. But I feel like Locke is living the dream. The guy's getting paid $5 million to sit on the bench. I would take that if I could. It's awesome. So he's now going to be the backup. And that was kind of what Daboll said in a nutshell. Hold on, coffee break. Trying a new cold brew today. It's good we got it from a local farm. Anyway, so DeVito is going to be the starter. And one thing I want to talk about, because I know a lot of us Giants fans, and I am typically anti the tank, but at this point, I'm over. The season's over. It's done. Lose games for the rest of the season. I'm on board with them losing. Now, I don't believe that they actually tank. Daboll is out there still fighting for his job at this point, because you can't look at the decisions that he's made and what this team, especially offensively, has looked like over the last 2 years, 3 years, and be like, yeah, he deserves to stay, especially after some of the very questionable decisions that he has made, and that he also sucks at clock management. So there's a couple things, the personnel decisions, like all sorts of different reasons. Ultimately, my opinion is that I am 50-50 on Daboll. If he stays, I will be happy to see him draft another quarterback. If he gets fired, I will not be devastated. That's just where I'm at with him. Maybe something will change from now until the end of the season. But where I'm at is I still feel like, let's see this guy with his own quarterback and see how things go. And, hope that we can win some football games once they draft one in April. But so anyway, my point of what I was going at with this is that I know so many fans are like, why are they putting in DeVito? I want to see Locke because I want this team to continue to lose and I want them to tank. Now, all the players out there are fighting for jobs, like I said, so is Daboll and so is the whole coaching staff. So they're not going to go out there and tank on purpose. I kind of think that, again, maybe DeVito is worse than Locke, but also everyone is forgetting that the games that DeVito won last year, number one, he didn't look spectacular. He looked better than Daniel Jones because Daniel Jones, quite frankly, was awful. So not that hard to do. And Tyrod had his own mistakes and things that he made. So, it's not like he was backing up Mahomes and had to come in and make a whole play of things with him as his, starter. So on top of that, the defense in the 3 games that he played had over 10 turnovers. So keep that in mind, because the defense played lights out the last few games of the season last year, and that was part of the reason as to why the Giants won those DeVito games. It wasn't because DeVito threw for 4 touchdowns every game and they put up, 35 points. That's not the case. So that is the one thing that's helping me feel a little bit better about knowing that DeVito is going in. And even if he brings some spark to this offense or to this team as a whole, I think that's great. I want players, especially someone like Malik Neighbors, to act like he still cares about playing football with this team. And Tay Banks, like, these guys need to prove that they want to be here and they want to be here for the future when we have a new quarterback and hopefully a winning record. So if DeVito is going to do that, then so be it. I'm fine with that, as long as they lose the games, right? So DeVito, step up your game. Go ahead. Show them what you got. We'll do our Italian stallion thing. We'll eat our cutlets on Sundays, and we're going to root for losses. It just is what it is. But I think the best case scenario is that DeVito plays well. The offense looks good, but they still lose by like a field goal or 5 points or 7 points, right? Because I think if you're still watching Giants football at this point, you do want to see them be competitive. I don't want to see them lose like they did against the Panthers. Like, I want to see them throw for touchdowns. I want to see the run game do well. I want to see Neighbors light it up and score touchdowns and, all of that sort of stuff. Like, I want to feel good and be excited to watch Dexter Lawrence play. And, hopefully Kayvon is going to be back. But I think that is the best case scenario. So I hope that that's what happens. Time will tell. But like I said on Instagram Live earlier, I have not an ounce of faith in this team at this point in the season. I don't care who they put in at quarterback. They could put Tyrone Tracy in there, or they could trade for sign Ryan Tannehill and put him in, and I still would feel like this team is not going to win any more games. So that's where I'm at. I have no faith in them. I don't think they're going to win a single game for the rest of the season. It doesn't matter who the quarterback was. Out of the 3 of those guys, it's fine. I'm still going to the Saints game. I'm going to the Ravens game. I'm going to enjoy the tailgate. Whoever is going, we're going to hang out and have a great time. And, we're just going to be rooting for our draft pick at this point. So that's where we're at. I feel like Daboll, when he spoke to the media, he didn't really say anything that was remotely interesting. I mean, people asked him like, why now versus a couple weeks ago? And he said that they just really took the bye week to evaluate things. What he didn't say was that we lost to the worst team in the league, so we have to make decisions or else we're all going to get fired. Like, we know this, okay? We can read between the lines. We know he can only say so much. I would like him to say a little bit more, but unfortunately, I just think at this point, he's been here for almost 3 years, 3 full years. Like, we're not going to see it from him. It's fine. But yeah, he just focused on, during his presser that they did a lot of evaluation during the break and they watched a lot of tape and they felt like moving to DeVito with the spark and the energy was going to be, I don't know, a reason why they were going to win games. So lastly, he also was asked about injuries and he said he didn't have any updates, but they were doing a walkthrough today and they should be fine. So that would be good news. The other thing, he was asked about Kayvon, who is supposed to be coming off of IR at this week. And he said he didn't have an update, but he was hopeful. So Daboll is back speaking to the media on Wednesday. So we will get our first injury report for the Bucs game with that. And the thing that I want to see on the injury report is I want to see that Kayvon is back. And then I also want to see where the hell Gunner is. This guy has been on IR with a groin injury for 10 weeks. 10 weeks? What the hell kind of groin injury was this? I mean, it had to be very severe, and I hope that he's okay. But like 10 weeks? That's literally insane. Only the Giants. So I think those are the only two guys that are left on IR now that Gano is back. So I don't know. I would like to see them come back. Again, I want to see the Giants play competitive football. At this point in the season, I just don't want them to win. I'm over it. Give us a draft pick. I want a quarterback and I want to move on, right? Like, we know Daniel is not the future now. So let's get our guy who's the future. So that's where I'm at. Okay. Now let's move on to Joe Schoen, who spoke with the media last week and, like Daboll, did his PR thing and didn't say much, but there were a couple interesting tidbits. Okay. So Schoen said when he was asked about Daboll that he has the team competing and he's keeping the locker room together, which is important. And I agree with that. I think outside of Tay Banks and, neighbors looking a little uninterested, perhaps. I do feel like he has done a good job of getting the team, for the most part, to continue to play football and to be, a little bit competitive. They're not good, but they're a little bit competitive. Schoen was asked if he gave Daboll a good enough roster, and Schoen said, I don't think that's the problem. He said that he did make some critical mistakes, or that the team made critical mistakes in key times, but that ultimately this team is not that far off. And I know a lot of fans feel like this team is far off, and we can agree to disagree on that. I personally feel like with a quarterback and a few other draft picks and free agency under our belt, this team should be significantly better next year. Now, here I go again with my optimism, okay? But if you look at the roster now than where it was 2 years ago and even last year at this point, overall, it's more talented. You've got an offensive line that's finally gelling and looks pretty good. You've got Evan Neal, who finally played football and was not atrocious. Now, again, it's the Panthers, but still, I think the biggest thing for Evan Neal is that he has to build some confidence, and having any type of game like that under his belt where he played good enough is a good start. So, and again, at this point in the season where I'm at is just let these guys play. You don't have to worry about Jones with the injury guarantee anymore. If Tommy DeVito gets hurt, I mean, it would suck, but it's not going to ruin our future. So at this point, let Evan Neal play right tackle. Let's see how it goes. Bring in, I don't know, let some of the other young guys play in different positions so we get an idea of who is still going to be on this team next year, which also brings me to a point that Joe Schoen said that 41 out of 53 of the current roster are set to be retained next year. They're already in some type of contract deal that has them on the team next year, which I think is so important. Continuity is huge. And, I think that the depth in some of the positions, and I'll go through this in the offseason, we can go position by position and talk through, the players and things like that. Now it's not the time. But I think that ultimately, as a whole, this team is better than what it was. We need key players in a few positions that really can make a difference. And I think we all agree that if we had a good quarterback, Cam Ward or Jalen Milroe, one of these guys coming out in the draft, that is going to make a massive difference on the offense. It's not going to fix everything. It's going to make a massive difference. If we get in a good defensive lineman opposite Dexter Lawrence who can stop the run, and then you bring in a linebacker who's going to help slow down the run game, you immediately are solving two huge problems on this team. Now, you have to hope that the other positions continue to do their job, but I think ultimately the talent is there. I think for the most part, the coaching is there. And, I do think that they're in a better position than they were at this point last year. But Shane is right. I mean, they have made some really horrible mistakes and shot themselves in the foot. And that's the reason why they've lost games. The Commanders game with the kicker situation, the Bengals game where the run game just went off, Daniel Jones with the interceptions, the fumbles, like all of it. All of those things happen. Malik Neighbors with a fourth down drop. Another one with a third down drop. Wan'Dale Robinson running short of the sticks. Like, you guys know, we could talk through a million different examples of why this team has lost games this season, but ultimately they've made a mistake at a very important time, but they have kept the games, for the most part, pretty close. So, I don't know. I just feel like it's not as dire, in my opinion, as I think some fans think it is. And again, we're all entitled to our opinion here. You can disagree with me, but I do just feel like with a couple roster upgrades, this team should be are the keywords better next year. Shane was asked about his process. He said, I believe in the process and where we're going. He said, this I thought was really interesting. He said he made mistakes and wishes he could have decisions back. So when people were saying, oh, you're all on board with the process and you like the process, but what about the quarterback situation? What about this? What about that? And he said, he admitted to making mistakes, which I think is important because we all know that he's made some mistakes, and the fact that he can actually own up to it as opposed to Dave Gettleman is, one step in the right direction. So I appreciate that he could take the slightest bit of accountability and say that he's made mistakes. And we all know that the biggest mistake that he's referring to is the Daniel Jones contract. So Shane was asked if he expects to be back for another draft. He said yes, which I don't think that's a surprise to anyone. I also think that there's no chance that he's going to get fired. I think if anything, Daboll's going to go. Okay, then he was asked about Tay Banks, and he said, we're not giving up on him. We think he has a bright future. Now, I heard something very interesting about Tay Banks as to why he's kind of done a 180 from last season to this season. And I'm talking specifically attitude, because even last year, if he got beat on plays, he was never visibly not putting in the effort. It could be because of Adoree Jackson. Now, we all saw what happened with Adoree Jackson on that Puka Nacua play last year. And Tay Banks has been doing some things similar. So maybe someone's been getting in his ear saying, the team's losing, season's over, who cares? You don't have to try that hard. Which, if that is the case, coming from Adoree Jackson, honestly, it's comical because, you literally got cut last year because of your lack of effort. And the only reason they re-signed you 6 months after you were jobless and didn't get picked up by another team is because they had an injury problem. So if I were you, honey buns, I would not be saying that shit to young guys who are actually going to be here next year and you're not. Wild. Absolutely wild. So anyway, very interesting. I think that with Tay Banks, it is some sort of attitude adjustment. I don't know how to fix it. I don't know, what's going on internally there, but someone needs to do something about it because it's pathetic. I also didn't realize this, and I was listening to another podcast where they were talking about the fact that it was either the play right before overtime or when overtime started, Tay Banks wasn't even out there. So not great, but I don't know. I need him to get it together. So Shane was also asked about Neil, and he said that Neil played well. He showed energy and he played well against the run. I am happy for him. So when Shane was asked about Neil, I thought this was very interesting because Shane specifically made it a point to say multiple times that he was very energetic. He was energetic in practice. You could see the energy coming from him during the game. And it kind of made me feel like, we've heard some inklings that they weren't happy about the way that he attacked his rehab and, how he was playing or attempting to play or whatever. And just got this vibe that they felt like maybe he was a little lazy or had like no sense of urgency about it. So the fact that Shane said multiple times when referring to Evan Neal, he played with energy, he was energetic. There must have been some sort of a switch there. I don't know what it was. He talked about him practicing well and things like that. So I just thought that was very interesting. And what I think is the most interesting is that when you look at Evan Neal versus Tay Banks and the attitude situation there, interesting that Neal is now the one who's coming out with a good attitude after he got humbled big time. And Tay Banks got humbled as well. And the fact that it's not really getting through to him sucks. I understand these guys are young, but listen, honey, you got to pick it up a little bit. So, okay, anything else? The last thing is that he was asked about if he regrets letting any players go, like McKinney and Barkley, which he said no. And then he went into talking about the rookies in those positions, like Tyler Nubin and Malik Neighbors and Tyrone Tracy, how those guys have come in and have really stepped up and played well. So I thought that was interesting. I agree with him. I'll take it to my deathbed that not re-signing Saquon was the right move. Anyone can say whatever they want. Again, we all have our differing opinions on this. I am sick of people still talking about it. It's ridiculous. Obviously, we all knew that if he went to a team with a good offensive line and didn't get injured, he was going to be a good football player. So, and then if he gets injured and misses the rest of the season or however many games or the playoffs or whatever, then everyone's going to be like, oh, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I'm bored of that conversation. Anyway, so this is where we're at. Tommy DeVito is our starting quarterback, taking on the Bucs on Sunday. Oh, real quick, I did think this was very interesting. So I was talking to a couple people about this, and the DeVito, so another reason why it's speculated that they went, instead of going lock, is they went to DeVito to put people in seats, because DeVito mania was a very real thing last year. And I can already tell the excitement from fans. I think part of it is just that they're so done with Daniel Jones. They literally don't care who is the quarterback, which is fine. But I think a lot of it is like, DeVito came in, he energized this team, he brought some excitement, he's got swag, he's got confidence, he throws the ball with, zest, whatever. I think a lot of people feel like, oh, okay, well, now I don't have to watch Daniel Jones anymore. I'm going to watch Tommy DeVito on Sunday. Or maybe I'll get last minute tickets to the game because I'd rather watch Tommy DeVito play than Daniel Jones. And even Drew Lock, who I think we all agree is not very good this year. So I think that also was part of the reason, which is interesting. So we will see. We'll see how many people still show up to games after losing to the Panthers, and now starting Tommy DeVito. So it's going to be interesting. We will see. So what I will do later this week, either Thursday or Friday, is I will do a preview game for the Giants versus the Bucs on Sunday. And then it's back to regular scheduled programming. I am going to live stream the game. I'm not going to be there on Sunday. So I'm going to live stream here on YouTube. So you guys join me. We'll have a great time. We'll have our chicken cutlets and cheer for Tommy and hope that they still lose. So we get one step closer to a new quarterback who's hopefully, going to help turn this franchise around. So thank you guys so much for listening. Please like, subscribe, share with a friend. My Instagram is at New York Giants Fangirl, where I post all sorts of updates all day. I've got a couple reels that are coming for you this week, one of which is going to be showing you some of the events that the Giants did in Germany, which was super fun. So stay tuned for all of those. And I will be back later this week with another episode. Thank you guys for listening. Have a great week and go Giants.